like something's not right. I was screaming in agony, the most painful thing I have ever experienced. I was traumatized, like I couldn't get myself to run, mentally going downhill. It put a lot of strain on friendships for me because, hey guys, I hope you're all doing really well. If you're new here, my name is Tanvi and I talk all things career, social media and lifestyle. And today's video probably doesn't fit into any of those categories, but actually it's something that I'm surprised I don't talk about as much. And we're going to be talking about an injury that really did change my life and is about to again. If that's something you are interested in hearing about, I'm literally just going to be talking about my story and my feelings, and I have literally not planned or scripted this video at all, so I apologise in advance if it is a bit all over the place and rambly, but I just want to talk about kind of everything that happened and what I've learned from it. I feel like it's quite a good video to do because if you're going through something similar, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like a sporting injury, it can be any sort of like health condition, then at least you know you're not alone. And if you know someone that is going through something similar and you don't really know how to act, or you don't know how someone might be feeling, it's also quite a good watch, because then maybe you can sympathise and maybe you'll know more of kind of what to do and what that friend or family member might need from you during a rough time for them. So if you want to listen to my story and kind of what I went through, then please keep watching. I'm gonna reel it right back to the beginning, and you might think this is really irrelevant and not important, but I'm just gonna paint the picture, and I guess it's really important for you guys to know how important sports is and always has been in my life to me. I started netball when I was literally 4 at primary school, and I've played ever since. I've played so many different types of sports growing up, like any sport, you name it, I've played it. And to be fair, I'm probably not doing myself that much justice, and I find it really difficult to kind of like boast or show off about things like this, but sports is probably one of my biggest skills and one of my biggest strengths. And I'll talk through my journey, but I have played at really high levels for a number of different sports teams and different types of sports. So when it got to kind of more teenage life, secondary school, my 3 main sports ended up being netball, hockey and lacrosse. A lot of people might not have heard of lacrosse if you're not in the UK or America, but it's essentially hockey in the air with a stick and a net, and you throw and catch it, and the end goal is to score. I really liked ball sports, essentially, is where I found my calling. Around the time of like 14 to 16 is probably when I was at my busiest in terms of sports. I would play netball and lacrosse for the A team at school. I was also doing things like tennis, badminton, rounders, athletics, like every single sport at school I was on the team, and I was good. And I don't mean to toot my own trumpet, but I was good and I was in all the A teams. And then outside of school I somehow picked up hockey, and I think it's a lot to do with the fact that I have an older brother who is really sporty, my dad is really sporty, and they all encouraged me to get into sports from a really young age. And I guess that could be a separate video in itself, as what it's like to be a brown girl who is very much into sports, a lot of the time the only person of colour on my sports teams, and I would really encourage any parents out there to definitely encourage your children to get into sports early, but I will talk about that separately. So yeah, I ended up picking up hockey because my brother was playing at a really high level. I went to like the summer camp thing one summer. They basically scouted me and wanted me to play for their club when I was 7, and yeah, I picked that up ever since. So I guess after 16 I had to really narrow it down to those 3 sports because I was playing quite competitively with all of them, and I just couldn't manage anything more with academics as well at school. So at the time I was playing lacrosse for my first team at school, I was playing county netball, I was playing club netball, and then I was playing regional hockey, which is like I was playing for the team that represented the entire bottom half of the country. The next step up is England, so playing for your country. So that is kind of the standard I was playing at. I played at those standards for those 3 sports pretty much up until university, and then when I got to uni I just decided to have a break from hockey. I was just like playing so competitively for so long, and when I say competitively I used to train every single day. I would have 2, 3, 4 matches on the weekend because I was playing for so many different teams at once. Shout out to my parents who literally came to watch most of my matches. I don't think my dad missed a match when I was at school, and all of that. I just wouldn't have been able to do any of this without them. So yeah, when I got to university, I ended up deciding to play lacrosse as kind of like my main competitive sport. And I ended up playing for the actual university team. I played for the twos, which is like the second team, which at university level is insane. We used to train 6 to 7 times a week, so we would have training every single evening, including weekends. We would have matches on Wednesday, and then we would also have like morning training sessions for fitness where you literally just run and you do like HIIT workouts, and it's very intense. And so at uni I was doing that, which took up a lot of my time because it was every single day. And then on top of that, I was playing just for fun. Socially, I was playing in 3 different netball teams. So I was playing for my politics team, my economics team, and my Hindu sock team. So I was playing for 4 different teams at university. So I just wanted to give you kind of a very, very quick summary of how much sports is a part of my life, how much time it takes up, but also how it's very much embedded into kind of a daily routine for me. If I didn't play sports for 1 or 2 hours every single day, that was not a normal day in Tanvi's life growing up. So that is just to show how significant sports was to me. And I guess that is really important because then you will understand how severe the negative impact for me was when it was literally just taken away from me in a matter of seconds. So that is kind of what happened. And so in my 3rd year of university, I was playing a netball tournament for Hindu sock. I'm sure a lot of you know this tournament. It's like national sports tournament. And so I remember this moment like it was yesterday because I'm still quite traumatized by the moment itself. I remember I was playing for Nottingham, my university team, and we were playing LSE, and I still talk about this moment because I was playing against one of the girls who I play netball with now in my team, Cam, if you're watching this. So she even remembers that moment because I was the netball captain, she was the netball captain, and it was like our 2 teams were just the most rivaled, who would always end up in the semis and the finals. And I remember this, it was the final and no one was around me, and this is the type of injury that what I'm about to explain is. But I basically was running for the ball, caught it, and as I land, I just twisted my knee and I just dropped to the floor. I remember as soon as I fell, I was like, this is serious, because I've been playing sports my whole life. Of course, I've had like minor injuries. I've been knocked about. I've been on the floor. I've got grazes, bruises, everything. I've got that, and I'm the type of player that literally will just get back up. As long as I'm conscious and I'm not in pain, I just kind of get on with it. So when it's a serious injury, it's like you just know in your heart, in your body, in your soul, like something's not right. I was screaming in agony, excruciating pain, to the point where I couldn't even like take myself off the court. I had to be stretchered off. I was at that point, I was like, I need to go to A&E, and I'm someone who hates hospitals, I hate doctors, I hate painkillers. I'm very much like, I can just get through it on my own. I knew I needed help. I needed something strong to numb that pain. I needed to be seen ASAP. Long story short, what had happened was I had torn my ACL, and I can do a completely separate video on kind of what to do if you've torn your ACL, the like A&E procedure, the consultation, kind of the actual rehab, prehab, operation, all of that I can do a separate video on because I don't really want to bore people who don't care for like the ACL injury. So what it is essentially, the ACL, it's the main ligament that kind of holds your knee together. It stands for the anterior cruciate ligament. And obviously I'm no doctor, I have no like medical background. I just know this because of the injury I had. And what had happened was that ligament had basically just gone like that, like it's fully ruptured and torn, and it's the most painful thing I have ever experienced in my life. And so that is essentially the injury I suffered. There's other things like the MCL, which is on the side, and the meniscus. All of that was intact and fine, luckily. So fast forward to like having gone to A&E, come home, found out what it is. I then had to make the decision of if I wanted to go ahead with having a surgery or just trying to do physio to kind of get it back to what it was. I saw a number of consultants when I was in Nottingham, and they had basically said, we don't want to give you surgery and we don't want to make you have surgery if you don't need it, and really pushed for me to have physio. And because I was out at my final year of uni, I was away from home, I was in Nottingham, not London, I had no family around me to look after me. Surgery just wasn't an option for me at that time. So I just said, okay, look, like, I will just physio, I'll work really hard in the gym, and I'll do that, and I'll get back to sports in a few months, and that's fine. So I did that, and I worked really hard to the point where my knee felt exactly the same as it did pre-injury. It was fully functioning. I was able to sprint, run, everything. And so I decided to then get back on the lacrosse pitch. And I remember it was really near the end of the season, like the end of the year at this point, because it had been months since I was doing my physio. And it basically just happened again. And at the second time it happened, it was just like, I just remember just losing all faith at that point. And I was like, I never want to experience this pain again. I'm not playing until I get a surgery because it's just so painful. I was like, I'm not willing to put my body through this pain again. And yeah, I remember being stretchered off that lacrosse pitch. And I remember it was so near the end of the year. I had final exams coming up, literally my degree final exams. I was like, okay, I'm just going to stop playing now and I'm just going to focus on my exams, getting that done, graduating with the offer that I needed because I had a grad scheme at the end, but I just didn't want anything to mess it up. So yeah, I just focused on my exams and came home. I just want to talk about quickly like the immediate pain I felt, the immediate impact of that injury. Now, when it first happens, you cannot walk. Like, I would literally have to be in a wheelchair when I went to A&E, and then I would probably have to be in a wheelchair for like at least 2 days. It's that painful. And then you're pretty much on crutches for about, I would say 1 week for me, 2 weeks on average. And then you're walking normally. And just to give you an example, if you don't follow me on Instagram, I've done it again to the other knee. And just to give you an example, I can fully bend and function this knee now. And it's only been 2 weeks since injury. So you can get on with life and do life normally. And I know plenty of people who've torn their ACL on like one-off accidents or skiing injuries, and they don't really care to play competitive sports. So they've never had surgery and it's kind of just mended itself. But the way the ACL works is that you will be fine walking in straight lines, sprinting, running back and forth. But the minute you're pivoting or changing direction, that knee will just go and it will just give way and you're on the floor again. And obviously with the sports I'm playing, particularly with netball, it's quite a common injury because you're constantly changing direction, you're pivoting. I couldn't take that risk of not having surgery. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about like the immediate impact. So obviously I could do uni, I did my exams, I was walking and everything fine. But immediately after, there's a lot of things that I think go kind of under the rug and under the carpet that people don't realise when it comes to an injury or a sports injury or even just generally like a medical health condition. Firstly, and most probably obviously, is the pain. Now, obviously no one can feel your pain for you. And I'm quite a strong person physically and mentally, but for me to be in excruciating pain screaming, it's a lot. And I don't think I can ever explain the ACL pain to anyone who's not obviously had it, but it's so painful to the point where I was on morphine and codeine and I could still feel the pain. Secondly, I just felt really isolated because I guess it's one of those things where if you haven't gone through it yourself, it's really hard to relate. And particularly a lot of my friends at university weren't sporty or weren't athletic to the point that I was playing for like university level. So it was really hard for me to talk about it with people because I just felt like I was a burden to them and they just couldn't relate and they couldn't understand. So there was a point where I did feel really lonely and I'd rather just lock myself off in my room and just deal with the pain on my own than even like try and speak to someone about it because I just felt like no one understood what I was going through. And that then leads me on to kind of like the mental health impact. And for me, sports was my outlet. Like when I was upset, stressed, angry, I would have sports to get me through the day. And so to have my outlet taken away from me, especially during final year when I was going through a lot of stress of exams and work, it was really difficult for me because I had no distraction. I literally just ended up taking myself to the library every day, which was good in a way because I got amazing results, but it just meant that I was mentally going downhill, like severely downhill. Knowing at the back of my head that I still hadn't even had the surgery, and once you have the surgery, you're out for another year, knowing that definitely had a massive negative toll on my mental health, and I guess I was really good at hiding it. I'm sure a lot of people at uni in my final year probably didn't realise I was going through all of this, but I was like borderline depressed. I had so much anxiety because every time I would sleep, I would get flashbacks of that moment when I dropped to the floor. It was almost like PTSD, and it was just this trauma that just kept replaying in my head. So all of that was just building up with obviously final year pressure, and mental health wise, it was just not good for me. And so yeah, that's kind of like the immediate impact I wanted to talk about, because I think people don't realise how much there is that accumulates when you go through something like this. I then want to kind of fast forward. So I graduated university, which meant that I was good to go for my grad scheme, and that was meant to start in September. So really I was meant to graduate uni, I think it's what, like June, July, and then I start my grad scheme in September, which obviously didn't give me any time to have a surgery, recover. So what I ended up doing, and I spoke to my employers who were actually very good about things like this, they just deferred my grad scheme for me. Now, the grad scheme I was starting, a lot of you will know, is at a Big Four, and it was in audit. So they have 2 start dates. They have one in September, and luckily they had one in April, so I didn't have to wait all the way till the following September. So they really easily and quickly just deferred me to the following April, which meant I pretty much had from July of my graduation to the following April to have my surgery, but also meant I had a lot more time, because really and truly I needed about 3-4 months after my surgery to get back on my feet properly. So what I decided to do, after agreeing kind of with my family and my surgeon what was best for me, was that from July to December pretty much I just went travelling. So I basically had a gap year, and in hindsight maybe it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got to go to Southeast Asia for a few months. I did India with my family, I did Cuba, I did Christmas in Hong Kong and Thailand. Like, it was amazing, and I had the best 8 months of my life. And because, as I mentioned, my knee was in that stage where it was functioning and I could do everyday life, it didn't affect me at all. I literally had my surgery in January, and then my grad scheme was in April, so I had a solid 3 months to just really recover, do my rehab, and get life back on track again, which is exactly what I did. I also want to add in here that I was very fortunate to have private medical health care, which again, with an injury like this, is honestly life-changing, because I've had friends who've had to wait over a year to even get seen or have a surgery date, and I am very lucky that with my surgeon and private healthcare, I literally had a choice of exactly when I wanted to be seen and when I wanted things done, which made a huge difference at that point of my life. Obviously not everyone can afford it, and I was fortunate enough that it was covered by my dad's work, and now it's also covered by my work. But if you're able to or are in a position to get it, I would highly recommend doing it, because you just never know when things like this crop up. Now, I guess that's kind of like the whole background story. I had my surgery in January 2018, and I got back to netball by the end of the year, and ever since, so that's pretty much 2-3 years, I have been playing netball competitively. I've said to so many people that surgery was the best thing I ever did. My knee feels stronger after the surgery than it ever did before. I felt confident. If anything, I felt like I'd reached my peak netballing game at my club, which is Panthers, a lot of you will know. And yeah, I was just very grateful that I got that surgery. And obviously it was a very difficult time, which is what I'm going to get into now. But if anyone's wondering if I regret it or I don't, absolutely no regrets, and I would definitely recommend anyone who's had that injury to get the surgery. The way the surgery works, I'm sorry I didn't get into it earlier, but pretty much they cut a bit of your hamstring off, which is the back of your leg, and they use that to build a hamstring graft, which then kind of replaces that ACL ligament to then reconstruct your knee. That hamstring graft is held in my knee together with, I think, 3 or 4 metal screws. So I now have metal in my knee. Let me just talk about kind of the longer term impacts, because I've done kind of like the immediate short term. I guess the long term is that it is a life-changing injury, and to be fair, it doesn't actually cause that much inconvenience now, but at the time it was life-changing, because when you go through a serious injury like that, you honestly have to put your life on hold. Like, nothing else matters other than not being in pain. And for me at the time, it was returning back to sports, because obviously, as you know, the physical mental benefits for me of that was just unquestionable. So yeah, at the time you have to put everything on hold. You have to really work around that, and not only you but your family. I had my parents just go above and beyond for me because I physically couldn't walk at some point. It means a lot of people end up having to revolve their lives around you and what you need at the time, and I'm just really grateful to have such an amazing support system around me that did that. Again, mentally, emotionally, it's draining, it's exhausting to basically tell yourself you're gonna have to start from scratch. When you have the surgery, all the muscle I'd built over the last 20 years of my life, my muscle basically went and my leg pretty much halved. And a very important indicator of recovery for this injury is measuring the circumference of your thigh and how quickly you're able to rebuild that muscle. When I had that surgery, I had people tell me like, do you have an eating disorder? Like, are you okay? Because I was that skinny, because I'd lost all the muscle in my legs. It's really hard to explain if you didn't see me at the time, but it's mentally hard to then be like, I need to go back into the gym when I can barely walk and try and like start to rebuild everything I've spent my life working towards, like in terms of my muscle mass, my strength, my agility. And when you do think you're making progress, you'll then just remember like you can't do basic things like bend your leg or straighten your leg fully, and it's like takes a real toll on your mental health. You just don't think there's any light at the end of the tunnel. When I came out of that surgery, I was like, how on earth am I ever going to be able to like run, let alone get on a netball court and play like a full hour of a match? Like, it seems so out of sight, and it's really hard to pick yourself up and motivate you because no one else can do it other than you, to get yourself back into that gym, to see your physio, to do all your exercises every single day. And the thing I found the trickiest was like the psychological fear. Like, I was traumatized, and I remember going to my first ever netball training session, and I remember telling my team like, I'm coming here to run, I'm not coming here to play netball. Like, I'll do the warm-up and then I'm just gonna watch, I can't play. And even running, I was like limping. I was physically 100% ready. I was my physio, my surgeon, everyone said, you are in perfect condition to play sports again, you're safe, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't get myself to run normally because I was so petrified of just doing it again and going through all of that again. And I remember my coach told me, like, if you're not going to commit to this 100% and you're not going to get over this fear, then there's no point. There's no point in you being here. And I literally had to force myself to overcome this like huge psychological barrier to just like make myself run normally again. Like, it was just, it's really, like, I'm getting emotional even talking about it because it's so, like, it was just such a difficult time. And I just also know that I'm going to have to do it all over again now, which is just really tough. So yeah, I guess there's also like a social impact in that, like I mentioned, you have to put your life on hold. And I remember I got my surgery in January. It was my birthday in February and I couldn't go anywhere. I was basically bedbound. I was on crutches, and it's obviously like the most minor thing. Like, obviously you get a birthday every year and a lot of people go through worse things, but I was just literally so upset on my birthday, and I was just like, this is so sad. And yeah, I just had to miss a lot. I had to miss holidays, I had to miss weddings, I had to miss birthdays, I had to miss loads because I just couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't walk. It put a lot of strain on friendships for me because it really highlighted to me like who's really there for you, or who's only your mate when you're like fit and able to go out and have fun and go to clubs and bars. But like, who's actually there for you, who actually picked up the phone and called you when you're at your lowest, who's come to your house to see you when you can't move out of your bed. Like, it really highlighted to me like who cared, and also illustrated a lot of people that didn't care, and it put a lot of strain on my friendship. I was also in a relationship at the time. I had a boyfriend of about 2 years at that point, and even then it put a massive strain on that relationship because it was long distance, and I felt like he really just wasn't there for me, which was the last thing I needed when going through something like that. It just affects you from all angles, And the other thing to note is that financially, it's a real burden if you don't have private healthcare and it's not on the NHS. Like, the cost of this operation is thousands of pounds, and it's not like everyone has that money just lying around. Like, it's a lot of money, because you're not just paying for the surgery, you're paying to see the consultant at the beginning, you're paying to have your MRIs done, you're paying for the follow-up, you're then paying for the surgery, you're paying for the aftercare, you're paying for all your physio, and it's a lot. So there's that. I guess now it's like important to talk about what's going on now and the reason why I'm making this video 3 years on. And I guess firstly, if you don't know or don't follow me on Instagram, please do, because I share a lot of like very raw and open updates and stuff on there. But I essentially have done the exact same thing to my other knee, playing in a netball tournament in Birmingham. Ironically, I'm pretty sure it was the same sports hall, so maybe it's just cursed. But yeah, I knew the minute I did it, not even the minute, I knew the second I did it, it was the exact same injury. And I know obviously everyone else around me was like, no, like stay positive, like hopefully it's not that bad, like it's just swollen, you're just in pain. I knew the second I done it, I was like, I can put money on it that I'm gonna need an operation, and I've torn my ACL. And 2 weeks on, obviously I've seen my consultant, I've seen the surgeon, I've had the MRIs, and literally yesterday was told I've torn my ACL and I need the ACL knee reconstructive surgery again. It's been a really, really tough 2 weeks, if I'm being perfectly honest. The first week I didn't speak to anyone and I cried pretty much every single day, because I was just like, I don't deserve this to happen to me again. And almost knowing how hard it was the first time makes it even more difficult the second time, because it's like, I just know how long the recovery is. It's about 9 months to a year before I'll even be thinking about playing netball again, and that just really, I just can't really think about that right now. And I think this time round, obviously I'm 3 years older, I think it's harder knowing that I'm probably a bit older and recovery might be a bit slower, a bit more difficult, but also I have a full-time job now. I have a lot going for me in terms of Instagram, social media. It's my brother's wedding next year. Like, I have a lot more important things that just can't afford to be put on hold. So there's a lot more on the line, I think, for me now at this stage of my life, which I think makes it a bit more difficult to accept as well. However, I'd still rather it happen now than again in like 3 years time. So I guess once I've got 2 metal knees, like I can't really do much else. So I guess I'm just trying to stay positive and like look at the bright sides and stay strong to like help me throughout my recovery. I'm definitely going to be vlogging it, which is another thing I wanted to talk about. Was when I went through this the first time, there just wasn't a lot of resources and people talking about the whole process, the physical impact, the mental health impact, and I 1000% I'm going to be vlogging that journey and talking about basically every step along the way, because I just don't know who it will help. And when I did it the first time, I wish I had something like that. And even to this day, when I talk about it on podcasts or when I refer to it in my book, yep, I'm writing a book, I always say, like, I wish I documented that journey, because I wish that it was out there for other people to see. And it's almost like I do have this platform now on Instagram and I have this channel on YouTube. And so it's almost like I've been given this task now, because it's happened to me again, to actually do something positive with it, because I can, and I can have a huge impact and reach a lot of people. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it now. Like, I'm going to be able to help a lot of people going through it for a second time, and I'm going to try and like be as helpful as I can. Obviously, like, it's still my life and it's still very much real pain and emotion that I am feeling, but that's what I'm going to be doing with it. So yeah, it's almost like it was meant to be, and it was meant to happen to me, and I'm basically going to be doing something good from a very, very, very difficult, tough situation for me. So I think that's everything I wanted to say and talk about. And again, I apologise for how wishy-washy and all over the place and rambly this video was, but I just wanted to do a sit down story time, talk about my feelings type video. If you found it interesting, helpful, you even enjoyed it, please like it, please comment, let me know your thoughts. And if anyone's going through any like medical injury, sports injury, and wants me to touch upon anything in particular, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm going through this right now. It's very raw, and so it'll be really helpful for me to know if there's anything you want me to talk about. And of course, please don't forget to follow me on Instagram because I give live updates there. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube because I'm going to be vlogging everything. And yeah, I just hope you guys are well. Take care, sending you lots of love, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.